Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. My name is Natalie Quinton, and I am delighted to serve as your worship associate today and to welcome you fully to this space. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies here. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit here. We welcome all you are bringing with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We welcome all of you. We extend a special welcome to each guest among us. We invite our guests to fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it off in the offering plate later in the service. Guests may also pick up a welcome packet at the back of the sanctuary, where folks will also find hearing assist devices and Braille hymnals. A fragrance-free area is located in the front right side of the first few pews. If you are a visiting family, including children or youth, after the time for all ages noted in your order of service, please join the children's recessional and head across the hall to the common room. There you'll be greeted by someone who will orient you to religious education. Immediately following the service, everyone is invited for coffee and conversation in the common room. Again, my name is Natalie, and you can come talk to me at the guest table there. As a way to engage at First Church, I invite you to explore the announcements inserts for the numerous opportunities available here. In particular, let me draw you to a few. Our church is participating in Doors Open Milwaukee next weekend, September 28th and 29th. We need a few more volunteers to act as docents. See page 3 in the announcements insert for more information. What is adult spiritual development? There are several opportunities to find out this fall. Consider joining a theme circle, taking yoga, learning about gender and sexual orientation in Adult OWL, explore a variety of spiritual practices in the spiritual practices class, learn about UU history through the Long Strange Trip video and discussion sessions, or join the grief support group. See pages 2 through 5 in the announcements insert to learn more, and stop by the RE table during coffee hour to register. You can also register online at our church website. Several of these programs have registration deadlines at the end of September, so don't delay, look for them today. And if you just like to eat and make new friends at the same time, sign up for circle suppers at the members service table during the next 2 weeks. Please find details on these and more events in the announcements insert. And finally, please silence any electronic devices for the remainder of the service. Once again, I welcome you to First Church by inviting you to join me in the unison reading of our mission, which is printed in your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. I would now like to invite Paul Ackert up to help light the chalice.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you on this rainy day. These opening words are by Michael Lunig. God, give us rain when we expect sun. Give us music when we expect trouble. Give us tears when we expect breakfast. Give us dreams when we expect a storm. Give us a stray dog when we expect congratulations. Play with us. Turn us sideways and around. Please rise in body or spirit to sing hymn 338, I Seek the Spirit.
The story I have for you today is called Amazing Grace by the author Mary Hoffman. Grace was a girl who loved stories. She didn't mind if they were read to her or told to her or if she made them up in her own head. She didn't care if they were in books or movies or out of Nana's long memory. She just loved stories. After she had heard them, and sometimes even while they were still being heard, Grace would act them out, and she always gave herself the most exciting part. Grace went into battle as Joan of Arc. Grace wove a wicked web as Anansi the spider. She went out exploring for lost kingdoms and even sailed the seven seas. Most of all, Grace loved to act out adventure stories and fairy tales. When no one else was around, she just played all the parts herself. She set out to seek her fortune with no companion but her trusty cat. She found the city with streets paved of gold, or she was Aladdin rubbing her magic lamp to make that genie appear. Sometimes she could get Ma and Nana to join in when they weren't too busy. Then she was Dr. Grace, and their lives were in her hands. One day, Grace's teacher said they would do the play Peter Pan. Grace knew who she wanted to be. When she raised her hand, Raj said, "You can't be Peter. That's a boy's name." But Grace kept her hand up. "You can't be Peter Pan," whispered Natalie. "He isn't black." But Grace kept her hand up. "All right," said the teacher, "lots of you want to be Peter Pan, so we'll have auditions next week and choose parts," and she gave them the words to learn. When Grace got home that day, she seemed sad, and her mother asked, "What's the matter?" "Raj says I can't be Peter Pan because I'm a girl." Well, that just shows what Raj knows. A girl can be Peter Pan if she wants to be. Grace cheered up, and then she remembered something else. "Natalie said I can't be Peter Pan because I'm black." Ma looked angry. But before she could speak, Nana said, "It seems that Natalie is another one who don't know nothing. You can be anything you want, Grace, if you put your mind to it." On Saturday, Nana told Grace they were going out. In the afternoon, they caught a bus and then a train to town, and Nana took Grace to a grand theater. The sign outside read, "Rosalie Wilkins and Romeo and Juliet in sparkling lights." "We're going to the ballet, Nana?" asked Grace. "We are, honey, but first I want you to look at this picture." Grace looked up, and she saw a beautiful young ballerina in a tutu. Above it, it said, "Stunning New Juliet." "That one? That's little Rosalie from back in Trinidad," said Nana. "Her granny and me, we grew up together on the island. She's always asking me, do I want tickets to see her Rosalie dance? And this time I said yes." After the ballet, Grace played the part of Juliet, dancing around her room for hours in her imaginary tutu. "I can be anything I want," she thought. On Monday, back in school, the class met for auditions to choose who was best for each part. When it was Grace's turn to be Peter, she knew exactly what to do and all the words to say because she had been playing Peter Pan all weekend. She took a deep breath and she imagined herself flying. When it was time to vote, the class chose Raj to be Captain Hook, Natalie to be Windy, and there was no doubt who would be Peter Pan. Everyone voted for Grace. "You were fantastic," whispered Natalie. The play was a big success, and Grace was an amazing Peter Pan. After it was all over, she said, "I feel as if I could fly all the way home." "You probably could," her ma said. "Yes," said Nana. "If Grace puts her mind to it, she can do anything she wants." The end. Will you please rise in body and spirit for our next hymn, hymn number 1020, Woyaya. We ask that all religious education participants proceed out this door after the first verse of Woyaya.
As we enter into a time of spoken meditation, followed by silence, followed by the seated singing of Spirit of Life, I invite you to settle yourselves in the pew or the chair and let your spine float up and your breath sink down deep into your belly. And notice your breath coming in and going out. Kimberly has a spoken meditation to share, a bit unexpected, a bit surprising and delightful, so I invite us to listen. Take those words and images into our silence.
In the Beginning by Nancy Schaefer. Kate is teaching the kids about dinosaur air. That air you breathe, that air you have inside of you every time you take a breath. That's dinosaur air, she says. Dinosaurs breathed it. The kids' eyes are very wide. They take deep gulps of air just to have more dinosaur inside of them. The air we have is all the air we will ever have, Kate says. We have to take good care of it. The kids gulp air less. Consider the air already inside. Kate tells more. Actually, she says, we are all cousins. The kids look at one another, disbelieving, believing. You? We, all of us, says Kate, way, way back, began as cousins, way back in the beginning. The kids whoop, clap each other on the back. For the rest of the day, they savor air, and they call each other cousin.
Parenthood is not what I expected. From the very beginning, things did not go as I had planned. I had many expectations. I expected to have an out-of-hospital water birth with no complications. That didn't happen. Before having children, I expected that they would listen to me all the time. They do not. I expected to have children who did not melt down in the middle of the aisle at Target. You get the picture. In motherhood, I've learned to expect the unexpected and assume that things will typically rarely go as planned. When I became pregnant with our first child, I did a ton of research. I read countless books and blogs about the right things to eat and what not to eat, the development of the baby, and about making a birth plan. After watching the documentary The Business of Being Born, I started focusing on the American healthcare system's approach to childbirth and learned all I could about midwives, doulas, and out-of-hospital births. We made a plan, and we were sticking to it. We had no plan B because we were solely focused on the idea that birth is a natural process and not a medical procedure, and if I just trusted my body, everything would be fine. We weren't going to let society pressure us into following the norms. Well, life most certainly upended us, and things did not go as expected. It's funny how life does that to us, not to mention children. I learned 4 major things during this time in my life, right at the beginning of the adventure into parenthood, that I could and have taken with me into the journey. 1, to be flexible. I need to accept the fact that I can't control everything and that I can learn to adapt in many situations. That's just how it goes. Life is unpredictable. 2, to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for assistance. There are people that I can trust for a reason, and my children and I are not a burden to them. 3, to forgive myself. When things don't go as expected, I should not beat myself up over it, because some things are just out of my control. While my plans and expectations may not always work out, this is not a reflection upon me as a person or a parent. Acknowledge it, accept it, let it go, and move on. And 4, that who I am is enough. I thank Maya Angelou for once saying, "You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody." Because this whole parenthood thing is tough enough as it is. Worrying about what others' expectations or opinions of me are only compounds the difficulty. I believe, and dare I say expect, that this faith community can help strengthen these 4 values for my family as we continue to grow here. You can strengthen us as we continue to learn how to be flexible, ask for help, forgive ourselves, and know that who we are is enough. I anticipate that through learning about the perspectives and life experiences of others beyond my own, my children will learn that their ideas matter and that who they are is enough. I hope that we can encourage them to have faith in themselves and provide a safe spiritual community for them where they can celebrate their uniqueness, not strive to overcome it. As I started to tell you earlier, life upended us during my first pregnancy. I had a medical emergency leading to a premature birth, and I had to let go of all my plans. I know I'm lucky to have had a healthy, beautiful baby in the end, but it certainly didn't go as expected, and honestly, most days after haven't either. I think that this is one of the joys of parenthood, though, maybe, loosening the reins just a little bit so something purely organic and beautiful and oftentimes unexpected can grow in the space between.
One day, when my son was almost 2, he was playing with his father on the couch. They were reviewing body parts, as you do with small children. What is this? A leg. Where's your elbow? It's here. And then he locked eyes with his dad, and he smiled this grin, and he said, "I." And he poked him directly in the eye. And his little sharp fingernail managed to tear his dad's cornea, causing immense pain and a trip to the ER, and it left him unable to use that eye for a few weeks. That same summer, though, that same age, I recall laying in the backyard on the grass, watching the hot wind blow through the summer trees with him. "Do you hear that?" he said. "Do you hear that?" "Yes," I replied. "The wind is moving the trees." "They're waving at us," he said. "Hello, trees!" Waving back, saying enthusiastically, "Yes, trees." Parenthood is the expectation that brings the most joy and the most sorrow. Elizabeth Stone puts it this way: making the decision to have a child, it is momentous. It is to decide forever to have your heart go walking around outside your body. As Natalie pointed out, as a parent, you quickly realize there is always something to upend you. Before you can catch your breath from one crazy growth spurt, it is followed by another awkward developmental phase. My child won't sleep at night. They really cannot tie their shoes yet, or they're having a hard time at school. Plus, if you co-parent, that relationship changes so much. You find yourself in unexpected and sometimes unintentional places in your life and in all your relationships. Our hopes and our expectations can get run over by the reality of child rearing. It is hard to respond well to all this upheaval. It is all too easy to feel a sense of failure when we fail to respond well to all the surprises that children bring.
The one thing we can count on is that there will be surprises in life. So what do we do with surprises? Happy surprises are usually easier to roll with, even if they do irretrievably change our lives, like getting your dream job, winning a ticket to travel around the world, becoming parents, getting married. It's harder to respond when surprises are difficult. Perhaps your father dies right before you're about to give birth or adopt a child. Maybe you lose your dream job or get jilted at the altar. When life upends us, it can help to name our expectations and allow ourselves to grieve when our expectations are not met. What were those shimmering expectations we counted on for our growing extended family? They can be so specific. Who will tell my child those knock-knock jokes? Paul. That Dad did so groaningly well, now that he's not here. Who will teach my child how to fish or build a birdhouse? Who is going to babysit? There are so many layers to grief, and grief itself surprises us, welling up at unexpected times and places. Even if we are not grieving, when life surprises us, we might have unsatisfied expectations or unmet needs. When we can't articulate those expectations or needs, we are often disappointed, angry, sad, or frustrated without knowing why. This can spill over into our relationships. In the world of parenting, it can cause us to put pressure on our child to be someone they are not. But a child cannot usually fill our unmet needs. We probably learn this lesson best when we reflect upon how we were parented. I remember my mother was delighted when I was attracted to the same career that she found fulfilling, teaching. In the beginning, her delight was welcome. But when my career plans changed halfway through college, Mom's delight turned into pressure. The fact that I dropped out of school to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do, well, that choice ratcheted up her anxiety, and she increased the pressure on me to grow up and do what I said I was going to do. There were many things at play in that situation. Generational difference, for example. My parents were of the generation who stayed in the same job or career their entire working life, sometimes even the same workplace. Mom expected me to follow that pattern. Decide what you want to do and do it the rest of your life. Well, times had changed. And you know, surprises almost always send us into the unknown. My mom couldn't have known that eventually I would hear the call to ministry. I couldn't have known that she would die before I was ordained.
It seems change truly is the only constant, and therefore we must learn to be flexible in our expectations. We need to find ways to manage ourselves inside of change, especially when we're responsible guardians of children, the embodiment of change itself. We do this so we may allow our children to become their best authentic selves, and so that we may grow alongside them as their companions in healthy relationships. In Rick Hanson's book, Buddha's Brain, The Practical Neuroscience of Happiness, Love, and Wisdom, he explores how evolution has shaped our brains and what implications that has on who and how we are as human beings. Every day, we experience things and we react. And our human brains have evolved to help us survive. And often our reactions are still connected to those survival instincts. Instincts like fight or flight. What can neuroscience teach us about how best to manage change in our lives? We know that our brains evolved from ancestors who had to develop strategies to survive. One fundamental strategy for survival is maintaining stability. We need stability in our lives to take care of our human bodies. We need stability so we may eat regularly, rest and sleep each day, have shelter, safety. Our genes, our DNA itself motivates us to find stability. Our brains have evolved neural networks that make us feel distress when the inevitable happens in life. Things continually change. It's a bit of a setup. We are hardwired to react negatively to change, but of course, change is constant. There is good news, though. Your brain can, of course, itself change. It can learn. This is called neuroplasticity. Your mental activity shapes your neural networks every day. A repetitive mental activity like meditation shapes strong neural networks of gratitude and calm, making you more resilient to be your best self when life upends you. Spiritual practice is a way to train your brain, helping you choose the way you react rather than your survival instincts just taking over. Spiritual practice allows you to build and strengthen connections between the different parts of your mind so you can access calmness when things arise. Neurophysiological effects of spiritual practice are real. We now have the science to prove it. Neuroscience shows us what is happening inside our mind and that empowers us to be active participants in changing its very nature.
When I hear that our brains are hardwired to prefer the stability of the known, I wonder, why would we ever want to change? Well, one answer is that we are changing all the time anyway. I was recently at a meeting where someone reflected on what had been happening in their life over the last 7 years. Her career had gone in an unpredictable direction. Then she said, "Well, that makes sense because I'm a different person now. All my cells are new." As you may know, the human body undergoes complete cell regeneration every 7 years. Learning to go with change rather than resist it can improve our lives and our relationship to reality. Humans are used to being shapers. We shape our environment, relationships, homes, and workplaces. But being human also involves being shaped by others, especially by communities. This can be difficult in a faith community, for example, or a family. Faith communities are built on tradition. The title of our hymnal says it, "Singing the Living Tradition." There is power in that, and I, for one, wouldn't want to be without tradition. The challenge is that resistance to change is often built into tradition. We have to remember to breathe life into tradition. Family systems are built for homeostasis. What does homeostasis mean? Whenever change happens in a family, the members of the family automatically resist and try to get things back to how they used to be. You may have had this experience when you recklessly proposed changing up how your extended family celebrates Christmas, especially if you floated that idea around the Thanksgiving table. Not enough time. Another way family systems work is when emotionally charged events or moments happen, we find ourselves reacting with the patterns we learned in our family of origin. Interestingly, this often happens around rites of passage. The very first wedding I officiated during my internship a couple of decades ago showed the power of family patterns. When I met with a couple to begin planning their wedding, a pattern of sibling cutoff at weddings emerged. When their parents got married, they'd only allowed one sibling to participate in the ceremony. They cut out the other sibling. Well, now this bride and groom wanted to do the same with their own wedding. Of course, there was conflict in the family that led to this desire. But I had to pose the question that conveniently I had learned in seminary. Do you want to repeat this pattern, or do you want to change it? You have an opportunity to make a different choice. Many of us have said we are not going to parent our kids the way we were parented, and there's usually a good reason for that declaration. Sometimes we are successful at making that change. We break the cycle of domestic violence, substance abuse, or emotional abuse that we inherited. Sometimes we want to change and are able to manage it well. But sometimes we need help with change management.
It is guaranteed that you will find yourself in places you did not expect to be. If you're a parent saying things to small people that you never imagined would fall out of your mouth. Parenting provides many opportunities to practice decentering yourself and your needs That heart of yours walking around without you every day is a constant reminder that it is no longer just about you. Decentering yourself is a requirement of parenting and a requirement to create intentional change in family systems. There is a well-loved piece by Kahlil Gibran called Our Children, which begins this way. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and the daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. When I was an adolescent, I recall reading this and thinking, that's right, parents. I'm my own person. I belong to myself, not you. As a mother of a 2-year-old, I read this piece again, and this time it really irritated me. I distinctly remember thinking, nope, this is my child. This child belongs to me. The piece goes on to say, you may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. I would add, not even in your expectations of them. I expected this child, the one we carefully tended to, it would belong to us. But I know in my heart that his soul must be free to belong to itself, connected to me, and yet reaching beyond anything that I will know. I must learn to decenter myself, my expectations, to make space for his.
When we try to help each other manage change, I don't think we can do that without considering the context in which we live. We live in a society that is driven by the goal to achieve and to be successful. We constantly receive messages about what success looks like, and then feel the pressure to conform. We have expectations of ourselves and others to match that picture of success. The fragmented and frantic pace of society influences us to overwork, overschedule, overspend, and underestimate the damage upon our bodies, our souls, and our families. When we join a faith community, we are choosing to push back against consumer culture. Belonging to a faith community is countercultural because in a faith community, we invest in each other instead of investing in things. Reggie Joyner wrote in his book, Think Orange, about the pressures of consumer culture on families and the expectation to fill our family's schedule with unrelenting activity. He wrote, families become relationship poor in the effort to become experience rich. As I've shared before, I was raised in a Unitarian church in a big city while growing up in a very small Midwestern town 50 miles away from our church. The pressure to conform in my small town was very strong. Yet I felt different. The two things that saved me from hating myself were the speech and drama department at school and my Unitarian church. My church was a place of both freedom and belonging, learning and community. Growing up in a UU Sunday school, I don't remember much of the content, but I do remember the relationships, the love, and the community. The community shaped me. It worked on me and helped turn me into my true self. The community made me for this. It made me for you. Most of the adults in my parents' generation in the church of my childhood have passed away. But I still feel them shaping me. I am now living in the house of tomorrow, which they cannot visit, not even in their dreams. But their influence lives on. I am part of the living tradition that shaped and carried them, and that continues to carry me. And there is no way that you can buy that. You can't get that from consumer culture. You can invest in community. You can invest in tradition, but you can't buy it.
This place is unique. This church holds a space that is multi-generational, aims to be diverse, challenges injustice, and is a faith community built on the idea that there is a power in connecting, in coming together to sing, to celebrate, to learn, and to worship with one another. Being a part of a faith community is a spiritual practice. It is a spiritual practice that gives you a physical space and time inside yourself to reflect on who you are, what is happening around of you, what is happening inside of you. It provides the opportunity to see how other people are doing, how other people are parenting. It builds our empathy and understanding. It shapes our minds for strength and resilience. This is a place where we expect to explore how to grow alongside our children with other families who share our values and our responsibilities. Here is a place to come when our journey with a child does not turn out how we expect it to go, and we need help. We come here and we hope to turn to one another for solace and wisdom and to share the deep joy of being in relationship with children. This is the place where we believe we belong to one another. It takes a village. This is the village. Families come here feeling a responsibility to connect to themselves, to their children, and to their communities, hoping this faith community can help them serve the greater good in themselves and their children in this community. Parents want to give their children a faith tradition where they can learn, I love how Natalie put this, to celebrate their uniqueness, not strive to overcome it. Parents have expectations of their faith community. They are looking for religious community where the adults are invested in and care for all the children. Trusting each adult to be patient and kind with each child's uniqueness. To take the time to listen and learn, knowing that a smile from a church elder is a powerful talisman for belonging to that young person. We can heal ourselves and each other in the most profound ways. Neuroscience has proven it, and our faith tradition can guide us in our spiritual growth. Here at this church, there is a long heritage and practice of love. A heritage, a tradition that is our responsibility to continue. This week, I was looking around. I was in the Leanhout's common room, and I was looking at the black and white pictures of the church history. And there, I found a picture of Reverend William Channing Gannett. He was one of our great Unitarian ancestors. Reverend William met Emerson, and he was close friends with Susan B. Anthony. I was delighted to discover that his very first job as a minister was right here in Milwaukee at this congregation. Reverend William was a rationalist mystic, accepting Emerson's transcendental doctrine of the immanence of God in the blowing clover and in every soul of a human. Reverend William had a historical awareness that the heresies of one age become the orthodoxies of the next. And so he wrote Sunday school lessons, and he welcomed to his church all who wished to join it to establish truth, righteousness, and love in the world. In the picture on the wall that is in the common room, Reverend William sits with a group of our faith ancestors on wooden benches. These are known as the Deacon benches. They are one of the oldest items we have here at our church. So I looked around to find them. Where were the Deacon benches? And there they were in the southeast corner of the room, near the crayons and the Legos, in the space where our parents and our children gather after service. How perfect, I thought. The oldest thing in the church is offering support to the youngest of us and their caregivers. A physical manifestation of our heritage of love. I think Reverend William Channing Gannett would approve. After all, we are all cousins, breathing dinosaur air.
Every week, we have an opportunity to practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of all the non-pledge cash in our offering plate with the community organization. In this way, we commit our resources in line with our belief that this congregation is interdependent with the world beyond these walls. This month, we share the plate with the Benedict Center. May the practice of giving bring us joy. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you, Sanctuary Quartet. Please rise and bow your spirit for the responsive reading printed in your order of service. This is written by Suzelle Lynch, one of our local colleagues, called Go in Trust and Expectation. May we go with our expectation renewed, trusting that the world will deliver what we want. May we travel with confidence, anticipating what we feel we deserve.
But faithful to the paths unfolding, even when it leads to wilderness.
And may we go knowing that there are always friends
waiting for us on the road ahead.
Let's join in singing hymn 311, Let It Be a Dance.